Let me start out by saying that I'm not ranking these based on which is the strongest. We all know that's Tevil, the unbalanced scale, or whatever 15-step combo loop you've cooked up that will make all nearby CEDH tables agree to a draw just to get out of the area. If you want to learn which commander can provide whatever the opposite of a deodorant is to your deck, then this is really the wrong place for that. My actual criteria are based on them being commanders and at the bottom of our list are Shiko and Narset unified. This is a Jeskai 4-mana 4/4 with flying and vigilance. They also make it so that whenever we cast our second spell each turn, we copy that spell if it targets a permanent or a player. And if we don't copy a spell this way, we draw a card. This is a commander that cares about us playing 2 spells a turn and then having the second one being targeted, which is a neat restriction. Something that I've always found very funny is how Magic makes the most random cards targeted. Like all the way back in Roman times, when Richard Garfield discovered the first set on stone tablets, Ancestral Recall weirdly allowed the targeting of players. Sniping somebody with Sign in Blood is hilarious, and if those shenanigans are what Narset players are going to focus on, then that's good for society. But I doubt it, because unfortunately, curses like Overwhelming Splendor and many extra turn spells like Time Warp target players as well, which is going to result in that one player that always does this shit finding yet another way to monopolize game time at the table. But that's not even why Narset is ranked 10. That's because this is really just a Narset card. What's Shiko even contributing? Flying and vigilance? Glorified chicken as a vehicle. Sign up to the Drift Grand Prix. Get 9th. Look, I don't actually think this card is that problematic. Yeah, you can do broken stuff with it, but you can also just not play extra turns and then she's fine. Maybe even a bit on the weaker end, seeing as she doesn't have any way to protect herself. But every other dragon got 2 cards. Shiko is the only one who got bullied out of his precon slot, and that just means that this card defaults to ranking 10th. It's just not really a dragon. Number 9 is Tevil, the Balanced Scale. This Tevil is a Sultai 4-mana 4/4 with flying, which is frankly speaking too small to be a proper dragon. This is more of a snake that swallowed a glow stick and somebody glued wings onto. At least he's got 2 incredible abilities. Whenever Tevil attacks, we mill 3 cards and then may return a land card from our graveyard to the battlefield tapped. And whenever 1 or more cards leave our graveyard, we create a 2/2 black zombie druid creature token. This card is nuts, because it works incredibly well with everything Sultai is trying to do, which is usually just filling up the graveyard and then either reanimating a Vin out of it, or putting on a really brave face as it gets exiled. Sultai is a weird color combo. More often than not, it's just Golgari that's misappropriating Blue Mill. This Tevil sure doesn't help that stereotype, as it doesn't really have a blue ability, unless we count flying, which would confirm my theory that this is just an abandoned 5-minute crafts end product. Look, this is a really good card. It comes down quickly, then creates fantastic value with every attack, making it difficult to remove because it funds its own command attacks. And then for every step of our disgusting Sultai vase, we poop out zombies. Reanimation, recursion, exiling for value. Everything creates a non-stop stream of zombies. And that's just kind of boring. There's no challenge here, no deck building task thrust upon us. This is the most definitive good stuff commander I can think of. And I don't like good stuff commanders or decks, because frankly speaking, I don't think they take a lot of skill to build or pilot, and I'm just not impressed by them. At number 8, we have our first proper dragon. How did it take this long to get a dragon on the dragon list? At number 8, we got Bettor, Kin to All. Bettor is an Abzan 5-mana 5/7 with flying, and at the beginning of our end step, if the creatures we control have a total toughness of at least 10, we draw a card. If at least 20, they untap, and if at least 40, each opponent loses half their life, rounded up. This is a really weird card, because it's obviously meant to encourage getting 40 toughness on the board to trigger the huge life loss. The best and usual way of doing this is to play Magic's biggest asses, creatures with enormous butts. Normally, a Chonkus Behind's commander would enable these creatures to attack. But Bettor doesn't. Instead, he untaps them, which works well with creatures that can tap themselves for value. For example, we could play a bunch of defenders, then use Axebane Guardian to generate mana, and then start digging for more backyard champions with Loot, Exuberant Explorer. But this is where you lose me. This is such a grind the game to a hold commander. I can already see the ghostly prison being cast in the distance, while the Bettor player is getting ready to drain us out across the next 4 turns, as they realize they didn't include any way to finish off the table after bringing them down to 5 life each. I will have no part of this misery and will instead start running Lightning Bolt in all of my decks so I can at least end my own suffering if you're gonna torture me like that. Number 7 goes to Ureni, the song Unending. This is a Timur 8 mana 10/10 with flying and protection from white and black. It also has an ETB, which lets us distribute damage equal to the number of lands we control amongst our opponent's creatures and planeswalkers. Now that's a dragon. Huge mana cost, tremendous stats, murders a bunch of things on the way in, and then makes itself everybody's problem simply by virtue of being on the board. It's got inbuilt literal protection. Not that anybody would want to kill it anyways, because then it's just getting recast and murdering another Scoot Swarm's worth of innocent bystanders. I really like Ureni the song Unending, but I already disassembled the deck I built for it, because the best way to play it is to build the most disgusting ramp deck imaginable. The trick here, by the way, is Cascade and Discover. Using these 2 mechanics, we can attach ramp to literally anything we do, and while the individual card quality might be lower, that's just not a problem once we have every single land from our deck in play. Ureni then trivializes the late game by constantly keeping our opponents from sticking anything worthwhile on the board, since we can just flicker it to re-trigger its ETB. This is by no means a competitively viable strategy, but it will bully casuals into proxying a Yuriko deck, and that's something I don't want on my conscience. At number 6, we got Bettor, Ancestor's Voice, an Abzan 5 mana 3/5 with flying and lifelink that synergizes with both life gain and life loss. At the beginning of our end step, we get to put a number of +1/+1 counters on another creature we control equal to the amount of life we gained this turn. Then we also get to return up to 1 target creature card with mana value less or equal to the amount of life we lost this turn from our graveyard to the battlefield. A certain subsection of the player base will focus entirely on that last ability, nuking their own life total quicker than their diet is destroying their mental health, all while pretending they are really far behind in the game because they've taken so much damage. I am on to your nonsense, I'm keeping count, you better be careful if you try to do that against me. Bettor actually requires a lot of life loss to pull off any of the usual massive reanimations. If we want to bring back Valgawoth, the big old moth, we really have to annihilate ourselves first. And of course, the whole point of playing this card as our commander is that we want to do it more than just once. Bettor's lifelink offsets this a bit, but is unlikely to make up the difference by itself, meaning we should consider it during deck building. Having to manage life gain and life loss at the same time is a really interesting concept that's been done before with bats in Bloomburrow. This is not a dragon, this is a bat. Which is sick. We are a bat household. We appreciate a good bat. The back and forth rhythm that is created by these competing forces creates a genuinely fascinating deck building and gameplay experience, and Bettor provides a noteworthy reward for dipping into both branches. If you manage to go up and down 10 life to distribute 10 counters and reanimate a huge creature, then that's just cool and I respect it. Just like you're cool for leaving a thumbs up on the video. Number 5 is Narif, Crackling Vanguard, a Mardu 5 mana 4/4 with flying and death touch. When Narif enters, it creates 2 1/1 goblin tokens. A little snack for the road. Then, whenever Narif attacks, we exile a number of cards from the top of our library equal to the number of differently named tokens we control. This is a really neat requirement. There are not a lot of Magic cards that care about names, and as much as I think the Frog the Jam situation is one of the most hilarious things in existence, staying away from those problems is definitely for the best. If you are unfamiliar with the Frog the Jam situation, ask somebody in the comments to explain it to you. That's too off topic even for me. Either way, Narif avoids those issues by caring about the number of different names as opposed to any specific ones. And that's just kind of cool because it's a deck building requirement that makes us think outside of the box. Of course, we could create a bunch of goblins and spiders and whatnot, but Bloomburrow's Offspring mechanic also works. And any card that lets me justify bringing out my Prosperous Bandit Offspring token is immediately a highlight for me. Just look at that little guy. He's just out here redistributing wealth from up the hill to down the hill, which I'm sure there's some kind of metaphor here that Spice 8 Rack could make a 3-hour video about. Finally, Narif lets us play the cards we exile on any turn that we attacked with a commander. At first glance, I thought this was a bit of an unexciting reward for an overall interesting card, but thinking about it some more, I enjoy that it cares about any commander. It doesn't have to be Narif. We can use Zealous Conscripts to steal our opponent's commander and trigger it that way. This isn't better or easier than just attacking with Narif, but it opens up the doors to another interesting supplementary gameplay package within the deck that can even serve as a backup emergency option for after a board wipe. Narif does a lot of things just slightly differently from everybody else in the same category, and that accumulates into a commander that might not be super powerful, but certainly has a wide range of creative possibilities, and that's good magic. Number 4 goes to Ureni of the Unwritten, a Timur 7-mana 7/7 with Flample that when it enters or attacks, checks the top 8 cards of our deck for a dragon and then slams it into play. ETB? Check. Resilient? Check. Good colors? Check. Dragons? Check. Ureni comes in and does dragon shit, and that's cool as hell. It's also not Arena hiding behind ward and cloning like Miriam. Ureni comes in, bowls, dies, and then just does it again. Number 3 is Tevil, Arbiter of Virtue. This is a Sultai 5-mana 6/6 with flying and lifelink. It also gives all of our spells stealth, and whenever we cast a spell, we lose life equal to that spell's mana value, which is absolutely hilarious. Tevil doesn't just nuke us for spells that we delve, it ruins our very existence for every single breath we take. It's rare to see a commander with such explicit hatred for its controller. If Tevil could, it would reach out of the card and choke us to death just for daring to think about casting it. Where Bettor rewarded us for a certain playstyle, Tevil punishes us for playing the game at all. The sheer loathing and contempt this card exudes makes me want to tame it, to gain control over it. This is a commander that demands a careful mind and that will happily laugh at any mistakes we make. But that moment, when we set up our graveyard right, when we properly manage our life and mana costs, when we turn it around on this ruckus beast and showcase our hard-earned mastery, that moment is what we play Commander for. This is a wonderfully evocative card that is powerful but limiting in all the right ways. My only worry here is that it might be too easy to go into some kind of Altar of Dementia, Foracle or Etherflux line with it, which might give it a bad reputation. But when built embracing the payment for the power, the risks and danger for the reward, then Tevil, Arbiter of Virtue, is just a wonderfully beautiful magic card. Number 2, Narif, Heart of the Storm, Mardu, 4 mana, 4/5, flying. If a creature we control that entered this turn would deal damage, it deals twice that much damage instead. This card is ass. This is not a good commander. It has no protection, doesn't do anything by itself, doesn't even have haste to use its own effect, and is a huge target in the color combination that usually doesn't ramp very much and will struggle to recast it. I can't in good faith recommend that anybody build a deck around this card. And yet, I can't help but love it. Narif is meaner than the bottomless malice within the human heart. This is the aura farmer amongst the spirit dragons, the Na-Idwin of Tarkir. Narif comes down and we all know there's only one plan: to kill people and to do it quickly. Everything that follows is directly copy-pasted out of the Otak Ball Lightning, crashing right through any blockers with no regard for card advantage. Let Inferno Titan, Sunspine Lynx, and just a good old Red Dragon join the rage. Let death be bestowed upon those that don't deserve it. Narif demands a willingness to commit so much into something worth so little that it delights the very essence of my being. A while ago, somebody left a comment on one of my videos asking how any Commander games go above 20 minutes, and I think I finally figured out which deck they are playing. This is the Commander we get out when there's 15 minutes left before the game store closes, as either everybody's dead in that time, or we have our first cast removed and just go home. Unplayable card, absolutely incredible, 10 out of 10, no notes. And finally, our number one, Shiko, Paragon of the Way. This is a Jeskai 5-mana 4/5 with flying and vigilance. When Shiko enters, we exile a target non-land card with mana value 3 or less from our graveyard. We then copy it and may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. This is such a beautiful card. Obviously, it's a flicker target, and usually those are kind of annoying as commanders, as they just do the same thing over and over again. But Shiko isn't like that, because it turns our graveyard into a toolbox out of which we can only use each tool once. Since the spell is exiled before we cast it, there's no way to recover it. It's just gone. This limits us in how many resources we have access to. We need to be careful with when or how often we trigger this dragon. But in return, Shiko isn't limited to any card types. We can reanimate anything, creatures, artifacts, enchantments, sorceries, instants, anything. Unlike so many other cards like it, Shiko doesn't only flicker to draw more flicker spells, but it can also build a board and utilize removal and stacks pieces. On top of all of that, flying and vigilance is such a fantastic combination of keywords on a creature like this. Our opponents are unlikely to want to kill it, because they would just set up for its ETB again, which means we can repeatedly bonk people with it, and vigilance lets us keep an amazing blocker up. My AO the Dawnsky deck abuses this exact circumstance to get free damage every turn. It's incredibly effective. Also yeah, turns out all Shiko contributed to Narset was flying and vigilance. Shiko is a super cool new way to play Flicker that is incredibly open-ended in its deck building while inherently promoting a proactive playstyle that will drive games towards its conclusion. This is my child. I love him. I hope you enjoyed the video. Bit of a different one this time. I mostly just tried a different writing style and I don't really know if it worked. I know it's just a stupid list, but the thing about lists like this is that to me it's just an excuse to talk about cards, right? And that's actually something I think is interesting. So I wanted to try making a silly list. That's it. That's the video. Hope you like it. If you did like it, let me know. Let me know your opinions on lists, I guess. I don't know. I'll see ya. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. Goodbye.